I'm still a believer in the core idea of Pi Network. I'm as disappointed as everyone else about the price, but this is why on my channel I never once got into price speculation. Why? Because it's pretty simple. No one had any idea what Pi would be worth. Some people way undershot it by less than a penny. Some people ridiculously overshot it by crazy statements like Pi will be worth $314,000. We knew that that was not possible. If you've been watching Pi's Price for any amount of time and you feel sick, you're not alone. I just want you to know. Here's the twist, and the real truth is that what's going on with Pi Network, and especially the price, is not just a Pi story. There's more to it than that. You see, crypto as a whole has been getting literally punched in the face over and over recently. So welcome. In this video, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to break down what's actually happening. We're going to talk about the implications, and we're going to see what's real versus what's vapor. And what we're going to see is what we need to do and how we need to rationally think about everything that's happening in the world around us. Okay, let's jump right in. One of the best places to start is right here. We know that Bitcoin has really fallen from its late 2025 peak way over 100,000 all the way down to the $60,000 time range. And if we take a look at Pi, it's not done so well either. We've seen it also dip down quite a bit. So first, let's zoom out for a second and just understand that what's going on right now is the whole market is in a risk off period. We go through these times. This is not just a crypto issue. We see the markets do this across anything being bought or sold. You see, when rates, inflation, expectations get to fever pitch, well, we know what happens. All of a sudden, we start to see shifts in the market and we see a sell off because people are shedding some of those things that just weren't real. They just weren't going to hold up. And what we see is when macro uncertainty shifts, crypto behaves like a high risk asset. It moves too, and it moves typically in even greater numbers. And so that means even strong projects can get dragged down. And for a smaller project like Pi Network, and I realize that might offend some by saying it, but it's the truth, well, those get dragged down even harder. A good analogy for this might be a small boat with big ol' waves crashing over it. A lot less ability to be able to make it through those storms and a whole lot more impact while we're going through it. And another data point, look what happened with MicroStrategy. They had huge losses as Bitcoin dumped early this week. And what did we see through all of this? A ton of drop across the market, a lot of fear coming in as Bitcoin dropped sharply. It's mentioned by ETF outflows and macro pressures. What we're seeing is same day market coverage showing crypto linked stocks dropping alongside of the broader crypto move. So now that brings us back to Pi Network. And to be fair, Pi has done a whole bunch of great things. They've crossed some real milestones. I know there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of wondering over the years, would it ever get to open network? Is the whole thing a scam from the get-go? Well, what do we see? We saw about a year ago to the day that Pi Network officially launched its open network. That means that you have a wallet, you have actual Pi, you can see it on the blockchain, you can buy and sell and transfer your Pi, you can do all sorts of things with it. It means that there is an ecosystem for usage of Pi. Now, albeit here in the States, at least, that ecosystem is quite weak. There's not really any places that I'm aware of locally to me that I can buy and sell and utilize my Pi. And that brings up another question, would I even want to, because of the capital gains tax implications? But that's a story for another day. That's not a Pi Network problem. That's just a crypto tax problem here in the US. But regardless to say, we're in an open network, and the things that Pi and the core team have been promising are here. But there's more to it than that. There's a lot more to say. Because when open network came to us, all of a sudden it changed the incentive. You see, we shifted from years of wondering, what would it be like? What's speculation? What do we think the price can be? What do we think this future world might look like? Where can we buy and sell? We had nothing but propped up imagination. Well, now with open network, it's all a reality. So another way to say this is we've gone to a stage where we've seen how things have played out, and the market has spoken as the market always speaks. Now, just so I can say this, I'm still a believer in the core idea of Pi Network. I'm as disappointed as everyone else about the price, but this is why on my channel, I never once got into price speculation. Why? Because it's pretty simple. No one had any idea what Pi would be worth. Some people way undershot it by less than a penny. Some people ridiculously overshot it by crazy statements like pi will be worth $314,000, going to like the 3.14 pi circumference stuff. We knew that that was not possible. The market can't support it. Well, the truth was, well, we've seen what the truth is. The market has borne out what the actual truth is. And here's the reality is that when liquidity is thin, well, so are the moves. And what we're seeing is the moves get exaggerated as well. And here's what we mean by this. Pi Network, as you can see here, is being traded on mid-tier venues like OKX, like Gate.io, like BitGet, MEXC, and similar. It's not being traded on, at least in the US, household exchanges. Places like Coinbase and Binance. It does not exist there. And so the truth is, because liquidity is thinner, we're seeing sell pressure hit harder. And that really brings up, I think, the bigger point that I wanted to talk about is this issue of supply. So if you remember, before Open Network happened, there was the ability for you to lock up your Pi. Many people ask questions, how much should I lock up? And the more I lock up and the longer I lock up, the more I'm going to get returns. Well, in those days when no one knew what the price was going to be, there was lots of speculation and a lot of people locked up for 3 years. And I remember saying on my channel, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to lock up half of my Pi for a year so that I can have some of it available in case the price goes wild, in case there's something I can do with it. And I'm going to leave the other half to grow for a year. And a year's not that long. I can pull it out if I need to. And so that was my advice for, at least for myself. And I will say this, it's not been great to see what's happened with the Pi price, but so far I have not bought or sold any Pi at this point. I've done that because I just wanted to stay neutral on all of this. So I'm speaking from somebody that's not been active as a price speculator, not someone that's trying to make gains on my buys and sells on Pi. I'm just following it as an interested person that just wants to see what happens with the project. But the reality is, because supply has been low, it's been trading on lower tier exchanges where there's not a lot of activity, not enough people to be active in it. What do you have? Well, first of all, you have limited access to supply. But now that these unlocks are starting to happen and people are hitting that 1 year threshold or getting very close to it, what are we starting to see? More people with access to some of their Pi that have not been happy with where it's gone, and they're just trying to make whatever gains they can make. Well, if you think about that from the macro perspective, what's happening? An increase in supply, not an increase in demand, is going to lower the price. This is basic economics, and that's largely what's happening here. So how do we get out of that? How do we fix some of this? Well, of course, we need supply to continue to go up, but we need demand to go up as well. And the whole idea of Open Network was to give the whole thing time, to give the project time for innovators, for entrepreneurs to come into the ecosystem. Well, it just hasn't happened, at least stateside. Maybe overseas that's happened, but not for us. And so because of this, limited access to that supply continuing to increase and not enough innovation around it, there's not been a ton of interest in the project. So here we are today, back again, and we're starting to see people maybe get a bit desperate. You see rumors on X and other places of people coming in saying rumors that they're going to one of the major exchanges is going to start listing Pi. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't have any inside info on that, and just about anyone who says they do probably doesn't. And there's reasons why the major exchanges have not listed Pi, and I don't know what their rationale are. I know typically that people raise concerns around the tokenomics of the Pi project, around centralization, around lack of transparency. I don't think any of those are huge game breakers in my opinion, but for whatever reason, the major exchanges have delayed on accepting Pi into their marketplaces. And I think that's a challenge because we just don't have the ability for, as we've said before, people to buy and sell. So does that mean all is lost? No, of course not. Why would I be making this video if I knew this whole thing was a failure? I wouldn't waste my time on it. I am continued to be curious and interested to see where Pi Network goes. I think with the number of users it has, with the interest, especially overseas for folks that have never had easy access to crypto, it's a project worth following. And so follow it, I will. So what do we know today? Well, Pi Network is real. The open network is here. We know that there's a real market price, even if that price is currently brutal. We know there's been a lot of vapor, a lot of rumors around exchange listings, a lot of rumors about what's going to happen next, and price speculation that just ignores liquidity and supply. So I would caution you to be careful about all of this, but for me, I'm not giving up on it any more than I would give up on any other crypto that I've been invested in. And that brings us back to the market as a whole. If you're not used to this, if Pi Network was your first entry into crypto, especially because you were able to get it for free, well, welcome. Glad you're with us. But the reality is, we're going to see market fluctuations. We've seen it happen before, and we're seeing it happen again. Those of us that have been through it a dozen times know just to continue to hold on. These bear markets are not so bad. It clears out and washes out a lot of the junk, allows room for new ideas to come in, and we continue to see big peaks, brutal letdowns. We continue to see narratives die off, but builders stay. And that, my friends, I think is the big thing that we need to take away from this. Builders should stay, those that believe in the long term, not the short term. And that's pretty much where I am. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's given you some degree of understanding of what's happening in the market and even my perspective on it. I would just say stay patient. I would say continue to understand that we might continue to see even more dips. We may never see a recovery in Pi Network, but I would remind you, even if so, what did you lose? Unlike other crypto projects where you probably spent money to buy into it, like I did, well, all we did was check into a phone to mine, so to speak. And so we really haven't lost all that much. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope it helps you. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on Pi Network. Leave us some comments down below. Are you a disbeliever? Are you still a believer? Why? Give me some feedback down below. All right, my friends, thanks for watching. Wes Spencer here, signing off. I'll see you later. Thanks.